do that. There we go. Let's get started. Welcome. Hello. I'm glad you're there. We want to have a little discussion today about ways Irides change. So are you ready? Are you ready to learn something about the way Irides change? I want to start first with a little bit of a poll. I'd love to know, are you familiar with iridology? At least a little bit. If you are, just give me a familiar in the comments box or in the chat so that I know what level I need to gear this presentation for. So if you're a bit familiar with it, you know the difference maybe between a blue eye, a brown eye, and a biliary eye or a mixed eye. I'd love to know that. Joan says yes, and Soul Food says yes. Awesome. So just before we dive into that, I want to let you know that, why is my slide not advancing? There we go, it jumped. There we go. Okay. You're here, and that's great. And Terzian says she can do a basic, she read a small pamphlet. Great. Well, we're gonna give you some more information that'll build on that today, Terzian. Thanks for being with us. Heather says, just from you in the last 5 sessions. Yeah, Heather's been a groupie. I'm so glad to have groupies. Heather, I hope that doesn't offend you. I love having people who follow me and work with me. She says, LOL, not at all. Thank you, Heather. Love that. You're here, and that's great because you want to learn iridology, right? You want to learn a little bit more about iridology. So I'm going to say, you want to learn more about iridology, you need to join me for a webinar tomorrow, a live webinar, a 2-hour-long webinar. In that webinar, we are going to be talking about the upcoming course, Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology. This is a course to teach iridology, right? And it is sanctioned, it is approved by the International Iridology Practitioners Association as a course to prepare you to certify with them. So it's not a fluff course, it's a get in there, hunker down, get it learned course. If you want to become an iridologist and if you want to be certified, great, go to iridology.education/webinar and get registered to attend the webinar tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. So right now it's 11 o'clock Mountain Daylight Time. That might help you to get your time bearing straight. And even if you want to learn iridology, but you're thinking, yeah, I don't think I need certification, you need to be on this webinar tomorrow because I've got something very special for you, right? Very special, even for people who don't want to certify, or they maybe don't want to certify now, maybe later on. Yeah, you want to be here. We're going to talk about the course. We're going to talk about who it's designed for, how it can benefit them if they are professionals, holistic health professionals. We're going to talk about how your clients can benefit from this. We're going to talk about what you get in the course, what kinds of learning materials, what kinds of support. We're going to talk about tuition and payment plans, all of it. So if you want to know more about how to learn to be an iridologist tomorrow, I want to see you there. 8 a.m. Mountain Time. I know that's early on a Saturday, but I'm thinking it's a holiday weekend. You know, you want to have the whole day to spend with your family. So let's get up early, get the work done, and then you can go play. Whatever that looks like wherever you are, with whatever the restrictions are where you're at right now, right? So I hope you will join me for that tomorrow. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. So here is a question that we need to ask right off the top. Do Irides change? Oh, that IM doesn't really belong there, but that's okay. Do Irides change? Hi, Los Trevino. Good to see you on Instagram. Do Irides change? Do they? Do you think? Maybe? Got an opinion? We're going to talk about that hugely today. And Letitia says yes. Ooh, Letitia, I like that. We're going to talk about how they change and why they change. Are you familiar with constitutional iridology? That's what we really need to know now. If you are, Terzian says yes. Yeah, good job. So we need to know, are you familiar with constitutional? because constitutional is where we're going to spend our time today. Constitutional iridology. And again, we're going to use the fact that some of you know some about iridology to kind of dive in. So here we go. I want you to take a really, really good look at these eyes. Okay. Don't want you to make any judgments. I don't want you to do any assessment if you know some iridology. I just want you to take a good look at these eyes. And for those of you on Instagram, I'm moving my camera closer so that you can get a good look at these eyes. All right. You got that good look? You've got that settled in nice and it's locked into your brain and you'd never forget that forever and ever? Okay, I want you to look at these eyes. Take a really, really good look. Okay, so if you were to compare the first set of eyes we looked at and this set, and if you knew that they were actually the same person and that the images were taken 18 months apart, what would you say has changed? Let's go back to the first one. And let's come up to the second one. What would you say has changed? I want you to weigh in on this. Tell me what has changed. What has changed? What differences do you see? What do you notice? Go back again. The color is different. Terzian, I'm going to hold your feet to the fire on this one. The color is different. Why do you think the color is different? Letitia says the second one is less yellow. Ooh, it's Soul Food says the second one is lighter. Heather says a different type of picture. Letitia says lymphatic movement. Maybrit says they're clearer. I'm going to tell you that some of you have hit the nail right on the head. Right on the head. Absolutely dead center. Heather says a different type of picture. Yes. And Maybrit says clearer. Yes. Letitia says less yellow. Yes. Why are those changes there? What happened? Lostravina says the pupil is different. The pupil is different somehow. So, okay, good observation. Good observation. Maybrit says detoxified. Well, we're really going to talk about that one today, Maybrit. Lostravino says the pupils are bigger. So on the first set of images, he said they were bigger. On the second set, they're smaller. Okay. Excellent observations. Maybrit says rebalanced. All right, so let's go back to the very beginning. These pictures were taken with different cameras. The image on your left was taken with an 8 megapixel camera, an 8 megapixel digital camera. The image on the right was taken with a 24 megapixel digital camera. The image on the left had an incandescent ring flash, which is yellower. The image on the right had an LED flash, which is bluer. So when we look at these images, you're absolutely right, they are clearer. The one on the right is clearer because the camera was a better camera, not because anything else had changed. This person actually did not do any cleansing, did not do any detox, did not do anything that would change his eyes. What actually changed is simply the technology. All right, so this is really great because this is just a tech change, just simply a tech change. And it's an important observation to make because, again, the color of the flash, even the color of light in the room, because this camera doesn't touch the face. This camera does. The image on the right was taken with this baby. Those of you who are on Instagram, I'll just show you this. The image that was on the right of your screen was taken with this camera. This camera goes right against the face. So it totally blocks out all ambient room lighting, which gives us a much cleaner, much more controlled image. The other thing we need to remember is that on any digital camera, what we see is you have different ways of setting the light. And I've played with the cameras a lot. And if you've got it set for fluorescent versus incandescent versus daylight, the images are extremely different colors. Extremely different colors. So when we look at an image, we have to understand the tech that was used to get the image. That's the first thing. Even the batteries make a difference. And I'm not talking about brand here, I'm talking about how much charge is left in them. Because this machine has batteries in the flash deck and it has batteries in the camera. If any of the batteries are running low, we're going to get less illumination and we're going to get alterations in the image. So the tech is so important. You know, if you're actually working with print photographs, which is where I started 40 years ago, working with print photographs, even the brand of paper makes a difference, whether it was Kodak or Agfa or another brand. And the way the developing lab had their machine set could make a difference. Because just like we have different settings in our different types of digital cameras now, they have different settings on their developer machines. So all of those things change the appearance of the image. So a much better question is, what changes can we see in the Irides and what do those changes mean? Because we do know that Irides change, just not in the way most North American iridologists claimed Irides change. And you know, those claims have been going on for 60 years. I've been an iridologist for 40 years. Yeah, 40 years. Being a holistic health practitioner was actually my first career, right? Hi, Nicole. Hi, Roberts. Good to see you on Instagram with us. And we've got Suraj has joined us on the webinar, and so is Letitia. So great. Thank you. We're so glad you're there. And Anne has just joined us on the webinar as well. So good to see you there. And so as we look at this question, 40 years ago when I was first taught iridology, I was taught that when I saw certain colors in the eye, when I saw certain fiber structures, if I put the client on a cleanse, on the right herbs, if I took them through the paces, we would see changes in their eyes. Well, I didn't know as much about photography then as I do now, but my machine was consistent, and you know, I took it to the same lab every time, and I always did that first shot where I took a picture. The first picture on the roll was always a shot of the box the film came in, so I could say to the developer, the first picture has to match this for color, and then I would know that that had calibrated all the rest of my images. But I never saw the changes. I never saw when a client went through a cleanse or used the herbs or did something significant for a length of time, I never saw their eyes change color. I never saw fibers move. After practicing iridology that way for roughly about 5 or 6 years, I was starting to get frustrated. I was just about ready to walk completely away from iridology and just leave it in the past as bohunk, something that was useless, when I was blessed to have the opportunity to learn constitutional iridology. The more I studied it, the more it made sense, the easier it became to do an excellent iris reading, and the more beneficial it was for my clients. And that was very cool because constitutional answered the question for me, what changes can we see in Irides and what do those changes mean? So are you ready? Are you ready to dive ahead with this and to learn what constitutional iridology teaches about iris changes? Why an iris change? If you are ready, I want to see a ready in the comments box. You ready? And you know, some of you, thanks Joan, and thanks Heather, yes, thank you, and Maybrit, thank you, excellent. You're going to, as you're learning more about iridology, Nicole, thanks for that. As you're learning iridology, you are going to see, and Terzian and Robert says, so ready, love it, love it. You're going to find books. You're going to find people that are posting before and after pictures. They're going to find books by well-respected practitioners and healers. And I want to be very careful how I say this. Those practitioners and healers have done a lot of good in the world. They have helped people get their health on track. When they posted the before and after images, many of them have admitted to using color filters, where they had the before image that showed whatever they didn't want to see in there. Then because they were up against a print deadline for their book, they used a color filter on their camera to do the next picture, and it made it look like the eyes had changed. When I learned that, I got so heartbroken. Rochelle says, I can't get on. Signed up, yes, on email. Rochelle, if you will, I can't fix the problem now, but if you will private message me your email address, I will look into it afterwards so that we can make sure that you can log on to future events that we have, okay? We'll take care of that later. At any rate, I was so sad when I heard that. It really, again, made me doubt everything I learned about iridology until I got a hold of constitutional iridology. So we need to just be aware that that is out there. So when you read it and you see these well-respected people that have before and afters, I'm going to show you some things to look for. Actually, I'm going to hop on back. No, we'll make sure we cover it. Hi, Eldale. Good to see you. So here are some changes that might happen. Pigment may be acquired, or it may become more dense. I've seen a lot of instances of this. We're going to look at an instance and at an example. Put the teeth in straight tomorrow. At an example of this, what I've never seen in spite of cleansing is pigment disappearing. All right. These are my husband's eyes. We have been married almost 40 years. I have been a holistic health practitioner for about 40 years. Our diet is clean. My husband is always on a supplement program. He has done many, many cleanses and fasts, and as have I. The first image was taken, these images were taken about 20 years apart. This first one was when he was in his 40s, and it was done with a camera that has an incandescent flash. The image on the right was taken just a year or two ago, and it was done with my digital camera that has the LED flash. So as we look at this, let's look at what we see that is really different here. You know, a lot of people with Jensenian training would say this person had done a lot of cleansing. Look at how much bluer the images that's on the right. Look at the skin tones. Look at the color of these sclera. Do you see how different they are? And then of course we see the different flash. So we know it's different colors. This was a print that I've scanned in. This is a digital image. We know this is the same eye because we've got some landmarks the same. You'll see that this camera image was tilted slightly clockwise. We have the marking that comes up. We have this marking here as well. We have this little thing poking out down here. So we see a couple of, we've got landmarks. We can ascertain this is the same eye. We've even got this little fiber right here. So this is absolutely the same eye. What we need to note is the difference in tech. This lighting is not as bright. The pupil is larger. This lighting is much brighter. The pupil is smaller. That alone is going to, when the pupil is smaller, it stretches the fibers out, it pulls them. And so that explains why the fibers in the image on the right are straighter and the fibers in the image on the left are a little bit wavier. Okay, so that's not cleansing, that's not healing, that's a function of the technology. What is the big difference that you notice because those are all tech. There's one difference that is not tech. What do you see that is different between these two images? I'll give you just a minute. What do you see that is different between these two images? And we've done cleanses, we've done fasts. Like I said, he's always on a herbal program, on a supplement program. We're always working to improve our diet. That's a bigger stretch for him than it is for me, but we're getting there. So Terzian says it's less yellow. So Terzian, I'm wondering if you're meaning this around the collarette of the left eye versus the collarette of the right eye, or if you're looking at the overall color, because again, the color is affected by the overall color is affected by the color of the flash, and the overall color is also affected by the camera settings, the white balance in the print film camera, and the actual light setting in the digital camera. The fibers are tighter, yes, and we've explained that the fibers are tighter because the iris is smaller, and that's going to pull the fibers to look tighter and straighter. Anyone noticing this? Remember, this image was taken just a couple of years ago. This one was taken about 20 or 25 years ago. This is a brilliant example of how pigment has accumulated. When we see pigment accumulating in an eye, it is still an inherent predisposition, just as everything else is. It's an inherent predisposition. And just as you can't see it with the lighting I used for my camera here, let's flip my phone camera around just quickly. I have crow's feet. I've earned them well. I'm 60 years old, turning 61 in a month or two. You know, I've got laugh lines. I've got these wrinkles that didn't exist when I was, say, 25, right? We can do certain things to reduce the formation of wrinkles in our face, but there is an inherent programming that says at this age, things are going to start to break down. Do everything you want. You can slow down the breakdown, but you can't stop the breakdown, right? So when we see pigment like this, there's an inherent predisposition that says at a certain point in time, there are certain things that are going to struggle more in the body. They are inherently genetically programmed to be a little bit, have more of a struggle. And so when we look at this and we understand what the color is, that's the first thing, because that tells us which organ is originating the struggle. And we look at the placement of that pigment, that tells us which organs are going to bear the brunt of that struggle, because everything is interconnected, right? You can't affect the liver without that affecting the body. You can't affect the kidneys without that having spill off to the rest of the body. You can't affect the brain without that affecting things, the heart, right? Everything is connected. And so as we've watched this form in his eye, we've been doing things, changing a supplement program, switching up his diet in order to support the organs that inherently are programmed to have a struggle, right? And so when we see pigments accumulate, when we see pigments build in the eye, we know that we need to do that backtracking. So here again, different person, same two cameras, because this is one of my sons who is now an adult. And as we look at this eye from when he was, which son is this? This is the one that is 34. Yes, I'm a good mom. I remembered how old he is. And so I have 7 children. So remembering their ages is sometimes a bit of a stretch. This is from when he was, 32, and this is from when he was about 12. Okay, about 20 years between the photos. So as we look at this and we verify, yes, we've got this fiber coming down here. It's the same one. We've got this fiber coming down here. Ta-da. We've got the same eye. We've got a little dark defect sign right there. We've got a defect sign right here. Same eye, same person. Let's look for pigments. If we look in the newer image, we have a pigment sitting right here. It would be right here, but it's not. We've got this, which should be sitting here, but it's not. We've got this, which would be sitting right under here, but it's not. And so we see that this person has also acquired pigment over the last 20 years. So again, we know that when we know what the color of the pigment is, it tells us where the stress is originating inherently genetically. And when we know where the pigment is sitting, we then can correlate that to which organs are going to bear the brunt of the problem. All right, the brunt of that stress. And so eyes do change. And these pigments are specifically suggesting that this liver has some inherent predispositions, which there are other indications of that in this eye as well. And again, where the pigment is sitting tells us which organs are going to be made unhappy because the liver is unhappy. It's like that old saying, if the mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Well, this is telling us which organ's not happy and who else it's making unhappy, right? So when we see this pigment, we may need to support the other organs that are being affected, but the smarter thing to do is to support the organ that has the bad attitude, right? To go in right after that so that we can then take care and mitigate the fallout from that. Is that making sense? Does that make sense to you? Yeah. So taking this particular person and suggesting that they could cleanse the pigment out, that they ought to have blue eyes, or that we could diagnose a disease, name a disease from here, would be way out of the scope of practice because we're not going to cleanse the pigment out. It is inherent. If you can cleanse a change to your genetic structure, go you. But what we know is that our genes are like the loaded gun, right? And it's our lifestyle that pulls the trigger. We're not going to change the genes, but by changing the lifestyle, we can avoid pulling the trigger. All right. So we'd never diagnose when we're doing eyes, ever, ever, ever. We talk about inherent predispositions. So I just want to share with you a little bit about how what one of my clients said when one of my students said after she took my class. She says, with the prevalence of chronic conditions and the collective deterioration of health in the world, have you noticed that? Many are turning to alternative health practitioners. Many practitioners simply apply allopathic logic with a herbal supplement. We are doing our clients a huge disservice by suggesting take this for that protocols because that methodology does not work long term. Have you noticed that too? Iridology helps us help our clients by looking at their unique constitution. When we do this, we can make more accurate and impactful lifestyle suggestions. Chris Mayer, who has given me the permission to use this, again, she's one of my grads, says she can now, as a nutritionist and herbalist, provide custom recommendations while staying safely within the scope of her practice with the skills she's learned in my constitutional iridology course. Love it. Love it. Another change we might see, pupil shape may change. The pupil is not, a pupil that is not round tells us that the spinal alignment and thereby the nerve feed to specific parts of the body is being impacted. There are tens of thousands of nerve endings in the iris, and we know that there are so many thousands of nerve endings at this very inner edge as well. All of these nerves ultimately go to or come from the brain. When we have a flattening in the iris, it suggests long-standing subluxations or misalignments. This is a sign that can be changed because it is not inherent. It is dynamic. I will tell you that making the pupil change its shape is hard work. It takes time. It takes consistency. It takes focus. Doing the right spinal alignment work, along with the physical and emotional and nutritional types of work, can help someone to reshape their pupil. But are they really doing it to reshape their pupil? Heavens no. They're really doing it to improve their health. So many people who have spinal subluxations don't even know they've got them. And as such, they are not correlating any little niggles in their health to spine, right? And so we need to be correlating niggles in our health to spine, understanding what's out of alignment, what needs to be realigned, how long is it going to take to both balance the muscles that hold the spine in alignment. And if the misalignment has been in place for a long time, those vertebrae have remodeled. They've changed their shape. How long is it going to take for them to actually remodel back to a correct shape? It will take decades of dedicated work, but along the way, we see improvement in health and wellness because we see improvement in the nerve feed to the organs and back to the brain. We can sometimes see the change of a lipemic diathesis. This is not an iris sign. This is actually a cornea sign. This is in the cornea, not in the iris. If you ever see this in anyone under the age of 20, you know that they are probably under medical care. This is an indicator that ophthalmologists also recognize. The lipemic diathesis, again, we don't usually see it in someone under 20. We usually see it in people over the age of 60. The age of onset is what's important here because it'll dictate what we need to do to correct underlying imbalances. As we work to correct those underlying imbalances, we are not going to see this disappear. This is there, it's stuck there, it's there for good. It's not going anywhere. You can cleanse, you can fast, you can do whatever you want. It is not going to disappear. And we don't care that it doesn't disappear because we need to work on the root cause of this indicator because the root cause is a health concern. And so we need to then be aware and you know, in the program, in the course, you will learn what this means, but this forms with time, right? I've seen them in people as young as 20, which kind of made me go, ugh, because that's not a good thing. I see them more in people over the age of 40, much more in people over the age of 60. And if you make it to be 80, you'll probably have one for sure. Okay, so this is so important. Pigment and lipemic diathesis cannot be cleansed out. Once they are established, they are there for good. The thing is, as an iridologist, you have to know that there's a lot of outdated information out there. You have to know how to pull up the proof and speak intelligently about what we do and what we know so you can refute that bad information. Here's what one of my grads said about the quality of her constitutional iridology education. This is the lovely Karen Choate. She is a certified natural health practitioner with a specialty in gut health. She said, Judith, I just returned from a regenerative detoxification course where iridology is implemented. I spread the word about what a wonderful teacher you are. Most people I talked with did not have anywhere near the same experience with their iridology education. No support, unanswered questions, and a lot of confusion. Mostly they finished their classes not knowing how to implement what they had learned. I feel so totally blessed that I've been taught by you. I feel totally supported even still as I graduated actually almost 3 years ago now. I don't think there's anyone out there practicing, educating, and teaching iridology like you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm eternally grateful for your never-ending patience and support. And there are more ways that irides don't change. So we can't cleanse out pigment, but we can accumulate pigment. We accumulate a lipemic diathesis, but we can't cleanse it out. We cannot change the shape of lacunae or the fiber structure. Now, let me just back this up a little bit because we know that fibers will get straighter when the pupil gets smaller. If this person was in dark lighting and the pupil was huge and we could get a photo of that, the fibers would be wavier because of that. But we are not going to see a fiber that is zipping off across other fibers suddenly become straight or ever become straight. We are not going to see fibers inside a lacuna change. We're not going to see a lacuna disappear. So we do not see what are called, what I was taught to call healing lines. We don't see them. I was originally taught that these lines in here were healing lines. They are not. What we know is the iris is made up of layers of fiber. So when we have layers of fiber like this, and we've got a lacuna, that's in the top layer. And so what we're looking at is fibers that are in the layer below that. Healing lines do not appear or disappear. Again, we see depth in the eye as well when we are looking in. So if we've got a lacuna and we're shaded in there, we're seeing the depth of the eye. So let's look at what this really means. Lacunae also do not get smaller. This is the same eye, all three images. Again, one taken with an older camera, the 8-megapixel camera that had a much less intense light. The one on the right taken with a 24-megapixel that had a very intense LED light. So what you'll see is first image, and the pupil is gargantuan, and you can see what I'm talking about with the fibers are very wobbly, they're very wavy. And we're going to use these two lacunae right here as our markers, okay? We did another image very quickly so that the pupil did not have time to fully recover, so we got the pupil to be a little bit smaller. And we can see that these lacunae over here, this one was very tall, if you will, but very narrow. Here it's a little shorter and a little fatter, but that's because the fibers are getting stretched out. Think of a balloon, and how if you've got a balloon that's a round balloon, you can change its shape by squeezing it in the middle or by pulling on the ends. That's exactly what's happening here with these fibers. So when we have that pupil pulled down to the smallest size we're going to get it, this lacuna looks shorter from top to bottom, but wider from side to side. The lacunae itself has not changed. We've still got the same fibers inside it. Lacunae hasn't changed. It's the pupil size that's changed, and that pulls the fibers, but nothing has actually changed position. Got it? Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Yeah? All right. So the goal of iridology then is to understand the inherent potentials, the strengths and weaknesses of the body. The goal of iridology is to combine that information with personal and family history information, because we know fiber structure is completely inherent, and we know that pigment can be acquired. It may have a strong inherent predisposition, but it's a little more personal than fiber structure. And our goal with this is to create dynamic wellness protocols that are individually specific and appropriate to the time and situation the client is in to help the client achieve the next level of health. Does that make sense? The goal of iridology is not about selling a particular product. It is not about giving inappropriate information that would be called diagnosing. It is not about giving bad information, like telling them that doing a cleanse will change their eye color. Those are not the goals of iridology. The goals of iridology are to help guide us in creating appropriate individual programs for the clients to take them to the next level, and then the next level, and the next level. Michelle Davies is another one of my grads, and this is what she said. She came into me well-trained. She already had 3 certificates from Dr. Pesic and 1 from Darko Purse. These were all in iridology. She's got a lot of other training under her belt too. But she says, this is the most amazing iridology course I've taken. Judith's course is top on my list. Judith's iridology course is very complete, as it contains the most accurate iridology, including sclerology, and most importantly, how to put it all together and make a proper assessment. Yes, yes. So with that, would it be okay if I took just 2 minutes to give you a little more information about the course? And I promise it's not going to be a sales pitch. That's not what you came here for today. This is just to introduce you to the upcoming course. Is that okay with you? Yes, yes? All right. So Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology is the only live, online, fully mentored course for nutritionists, herbalists, naturopaths who want to streamline their clinical work without sacrificing client care. So they can stop working unpaid overtime to develop client programs, so they can stop overwhelming their clients with undoable programs, so they can create programs that will increase client compliance, client success, and long-term retention. Now I know what I'm talking about here. And I'm telling you that because I have many clients that have been with me for 10, 15, 20 years. I've got clients that are now third generation where I worked with the mom, the grandma 40 years ago as she was having babies. And now I'm working with those babies as they're having babies, right? I did the math with one of my clients the other day who was in again, and we figured out she's been coming for 38 years. Yeah, we've been working together for 38 years now. So if you are having problems with long-term client retention, if you'd like to have repeat clients who keep coming back year after year, so you don't have to work so hard to find clients, and that's great. This course is starting soon. If you've been to an info webinar before, and Zinti, I hope I said that, Rhodes says she used to practice it, she stopped, and she feels the need to go back and study again. Welcome. So glad you found me. If you've been to one of my info webinars before, where I go into all the details of what the course includes, I invite you to join me again, because I've heard the requests loud and clear that some people would prefer a self-study version. I am ready to share all the details of the course, including the self-study version, tomorrow morning. Let's just talk a little bit about the course, just so you know. It starts Thursday, April 16th or Friday, April 17th for those who want the fully mentored version and want a live teacher, but we will do more detail with that again tomorrow. For those of you who want details about all of the versions of the course, join me tomorrow morning. Go to iridology.education/webinar and sign up to be with me tomorrow morning. That'll reserve your spot for the info webinar. So again, that's iridology.education/webinar. And what you need to know is that registration will actually be closing Monday at midnight. Monday at midnight. So we're cutting it close to the wire here. And we're just going to pop this in. There we go. In this webinar, I'm going to show you, I'll do a couple of quick case studies for you, but I'm also going to share with you who the course is for, who will benefit the most from taking it. If you have a practice and you're working with clients, I'm going to share with you how your clients will actually benefit from you having this information. We will talk about what's included in the course for both versions, the self-study, home study one, and the fully mentored live training one. We'll talk about tuitions. We'll talk about payment plans. You'll have all of the information you need to decide if this is the right thing for you right now. All right. And so that's coming up tomorrow morning, bright and early. Rise and shine. And I know for those of you who are on the West Coast, 7 a.m., yep, I know it's early. For those of you around the world, it's different times. But again, just inviting you to join me for that. If you're interested in learning more about an iridology course that you can do from home with or without a live instructor, you got to be here. If you're struggling to find clients, if you're struggling to retain clients, if you're struggling with working too much overtime, you got to be here, because I'm going to help you find solutions to all of those. Okay. In fact, I'm going to give you specifically 4 tips tomorrow that don't need iridology to help you start streamlining your practice, to the client work that you do, without sacrificing your client care. That's so important, right? Especially at this point in time where people are afraid. I don't know if you're finding that you've got more of your clients calling you now than you ever had before. I know I do. And they want to know, what can they do to strengthen their immune system? Well, that's going to be different for everybody. But if they're clients that I've got eye photos of, which is all of my clients actually, because I insist on doing those in the first appointment at least, I can actually do a phone session with them, call up their eye photos and look at their photos, talk about their symptoms, and talk about where they should be supporting, where their body says it will always need support to protect them, to help them fight off infections, right? So iridology, once you've got those photos, you can do everything at a distance. So yeah, that's what we've got for you. Any questions or comments? And Elizabeth and Susan and Iridology CT, so good to have you with me on Instagram. We are just wrapping up. There you go. So now you know some of the ways irides do change. You know some of the ways they don't change. You know what can make it look like an iris has changed when it really hasn't. And that's all good, right? You good? Yeah. Peggy is online. She's joined us on Facebook. She is one of my grads, and she says, thanks, Judith. You are amazing. Thank you, Peggy. Love you back. I do love my students. I really do. So join me tomorrow morning. Hop on over to iridology.education/webinar, reserve your spot. And Heather says she'll see me tomorrow morning. Love it, Heather. Love to see you there. Love to have all of you there. And especially if you're a practitioner, you gotta be there. See you tomorrow. Have a wonderful, blessed day. Happy Good Friday. And we will talk to you later. Terzian said, this was informative. Thank you. My book must be old info. Yeah, Terzian, we've learned a lot the last 30 years. So yeah, hope you'll join me tomorrow. We will talk to you later. Have a fabulous day. Bye for now.